In the heart of ancient Britain, a story of fire, fury, and vengeance was forged. This isn't just a tale from a dusty history book. It's the epic saga of a warrior queen who brought the mighty Roman Empire to its knees. Get ready to meet Boudica, the flame-haired leader of the Iceni tribe. Our story begins around 60 AD in what is now East Anglia, England. The Romans had been stomping around Britain for a couple of decades, imposing their laws, their taxes, and their will. The local tribes, including the Iceni, were understandably not thrilled about it. The Iceni were what the Romans called a client kingdom, which was a nice way of saying they had a deal. They could keep their land and their king Prasutagus as long as they played by Rome's rules and paid their dues. Prasutagus was a savvy ruler. He knew how powerful Rome was, so he tried to keep the peace. In his will, he did something clever, or so he thought. He named the Roman Emperor Nero as his co-heir, alongside his own two daughters. His logic was simple. By giving the emperor a piece of the pie, he hoped Rome would leave the rest of his family and his kingdom alone. A solid plan, right? Well, it backfired spectacularly. When Prasutagus died, the Romans didn't see a friendly gesture. They saw an opportunity. The Roman procurator, a man named Cottesticinus, decided the entire Iceni kingdom was now Roman property. He declared Prasutagus' will void. Roman officials stormed in, seizing lands, confiscating property, and treating the Iceni nobles like common slaves, but they didn't stop there. In a display of ultimate humiliation and cruelty, they publicly flogged Prasutagus' widow, Queen Boudica, and assaulted her two young daughters. This was more than an insult. It was a declaration of war. The Romans had intended to break the spirit of the Iceni. Instead, they ignited a firestorm. Boudica, her heart filled with grief and a burning desire for revenge, transformed from a queen into a warrior. She wasn't just fighting for her family's honor. She was fighting for the very soul of her people. Imagine the scene: a tall, imposing woman with fiery red hair flowing down to her waist, a piercing gaze, and a voice that could command armies. She rallied her people, her words like sparks in a tinderbox. She spoke of Roman greed, of their broken promises, and the unspeakable atrocities committed against her and her daughters. The Iceni listened. Their neighbors, the Trinovantes, who had their own grievances with the Romans building a massive temple on their land, listened too. Soon, a massive rebel army was formed, with Boudica at its head. They were a force fueled by pure rage, and they had a single target in mind: Roman civilization itself. Their first stop was Camulodunum, modern-day Colchester. It was the former capital of Roman Britain, a symbol of their occupation. The city was full of retired Roman soldiers who had taken the best land, and it was poorly defended. Boudica's army descended like a tidal wave. They showed no mercy. They sacked the city, burned it to the ground, and slaughtered its inhabitants. The great temple of Claudius, a monument to Roman arrogance, became a final, fiery tomb for those who sought refuge inside. News of the massacre sent shockwaves through the Roman province. The 9th Legion, commanded by Petilius Cerealis, marched south to crush the rebellion, but they severely underestimated their opponent. Boudica's forces ambushed the legion and, in a devastating battle, wiped out almost their entire infantry. The Roman cavalry barely escaped with their lives. Now panic was spreading. The Roman governor, Suetonius Paulinus, was hundreds of miles away, campaigning in Wales. He had to make a choice. He raced back, but it was too late to save the next target, Londinium. Yes, that's London. At the time, it was a bustling commercial hub filled with merchants, traders, and Roman citizens. Suetonius looked at the city and made a brutal calculation. He didn't have enough men to defend it. Saving Londinium would mean losing his entire army. So he made the heart-wrenching decision to abandon it to its fate. What happened next was a repeat of the horror at Camulodunum, but on an even larger scale. Boudica's army swarmed into the undefended city. Again, they burned, they looted, and they killed, anyone who hadn't fled was cut down. Archaeological evidence today shows a thick red layer of burned debris under modern London, a grim testament to the inferno that consumed the city. From there, the war band moved on to Verulamium, today's St. Albans, and destroyed it as well. In a matter of weeks, Boudica had obliterated the three main centers of Roman life in Britain. It's estimated that between 70,000 and 80,000 Romans and their supporters were killed. The rebellion was a staggering success. It looked like the Britons might actually drive the Romans out for good. But Suetonius, the Roman governor, was a seasoned general. He had gathered what was left of his forces, the 14th Legion, parts of the 20th, and any auxiliaries he could find. He had about 10,000 soldiers. Boudica, according to Roman sources, commanded a massive army, perhaps over 100,000 strong. The numbers were not in Rome's favor. But Suetonius had strategy. He chose his battlefield carefully. The final confrontation took place somewhere along the Roman road now known as Watling Street, but the exact location is still debated by historians. Suetonius picked a spot with a narrow gorge, protected by a forest at his back. This meant Boudica's massive army couldn't use its numbers to surround him. They would have to attack him head-on, funneling into a killing zone. Boudica was confident. She rode through her ranks in a chariot with her daughters, delivering a powerful speech, promising victory and freedom. The Britons were so sure they would win that they had brought their families in wagons to watch the battle from the edge of the field, as if it were a spectator sport. This would prove to be a fatal mistake. The battle began. The Britons charged forward in a massive, disorganized wave, screaming their war cries. The Romans stood firm, silent, and disciplined. They held their ground until the Britons were almost upon them, then unleashed a volley of heavy-throwing spears called pila. The spears punched through shields and armor, causing chaos and confusion. Then Suetonius gave the order. The Roman legionaries, formed in a tight wedge, charged forward. It was a clash of two completely different styles of warfare. The Britons had rage and numbers. The Romans had discipline, superior equipment, and tactics. The narrow battlefield turned the Britons' greatest advantage, their numbers, into a disadvantage. They were packed so tightly they could barely swing their swords. The Romans, with their short stabbing swords and large shields, methodically cut their way through the tightly packed mob. The battle turned into a slaughter. The Britons tried to retreat, but their path was blocked by the very wagons their families had brought to watch the victory. They were trapped. The Romans showed no mercy, killing warriors, women, and even the animals that pulled the wagons. By the end of the day, the field was littered with the bodies of tens of thousands of Britons. Roman casualties were in the hundreds. It was a crushing, decisive victory for Rome. And what of Boudica? The Roman historian Tacitus tells us she escaped the battlefield, but rather than face capture, she took poison and died. Her dream of a free Britain died with her. The rebellion was over. In the aftermath, Rome unleashed a brutal crackdown. They reinforced their army in Britain and began a campaign of punishment, devastating the lands of the tribes who had rebelled. But something interesting happened. The original procurator, the greedy Cottus Dicinus, who had sparked the whole thing, had fled to Gaul. His replacement, a man named Julius Classicinus, sent a report back to Emperor Nero. He argued that Suetonius's harsh policies would only lead to more conflict. He advised a more lenient approach. Surprisingly, Nero listened. Suetonius was recalled, and a new governor with a more conciliatory policy was put in place. In a strange way, Boudica's rebellion, despite its brutal failure, changed Roman Britain forever. It forced Rome to recognize that ruling by pure force and exploitation wasn't sustainable. They began to govern more justly, investing in the province rather than just stripping it of its resources. Today, Boudica stands as a powerful symbol of freedom and resistance. A magnificent statue of her in her war chariot stands near the Houses of Parliament in London, the very city she once burned to the ground. She is a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming power, the fight for justice and dignity can shake an empire to its core. Her story is a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit against tyranny. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more epic tales from history. See you next time.